You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society.
And now, the end is near.
Well, here it is, another rockin' awesome Saturday night. And it's January 22nd, 2022. And we are counting down the last days of the Watchtower. Well, hello everyone, and welcome in. Welcome into our weekly newscast, bringing you up to speed on what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. My name's Rick Farron, and we're glad you could join us tonight. We've been doing this now for 16 years. We're here every week. We have not missed a week in 16 years. We are here because you are here. Friends, there's so many people right now that are leaving the Watchtower. There's a lot of people that are very unhappy with what's going on in that organization. And, I want to let you know, there's so much news. You guys know it anyways. You're checking this stuff out, I believe. But there's so much news concerning the Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's all critical. There's no good news. Once in a while, you get a little puff piece, a little fluffy news from one of the officials of the Watchtower telling you how great they're doing during the pandemic, but it's all lies. It's all lies. Or you might hear them saying they're doing wonderful and recruiting more people. All lies. That's what they do. They're prolific liars. That's what the Watchtower is. And yet they promulgate themselves as being the only true Christian organization on the planet. My goodness, that's crazy. Well, anyways, we're coming to you from the apostate capital of the world. That's up here in Boston, Massachusetts. And as I always say, we've got a lot of apostates up here. I'm not sure why, but boy, we got a lot of good company, a lot of good apostates that I'm friends with up here. And also you guys, wherever you are, don't you worry. If you don't have many apostates in your neck of the woods, they're coming. Don't you worry one bit. You're going to get a whole lot soon because the Watchtower is crumbling. Stick a fork in it, take it off the grill. As we always say, the monkey died. The circus is over. They're not going to continue to pull this off like they have. And it's just unbelievable, the child molesters that are in the news about the Watchtower. And if you're a witness listening in, you've got to take this to heart, especially if you have children. Don't dare let them go to a sleepover or go over to their friend's house. I would stay way away from that. There's too many pedophiles. There's too many people that are perverted sexually in the Watchtower. We're going to be talking about that tonight. And I know we got a lot of attention this week because 2 weeks ago in my broadcast, we had a woman dial in. You may have heard her. Her name was Lisa. And she talked about this very secretive order that is in the Watchtower. She says, now the rank and file never see it, but she said the top echelon, the officials know about it. There's sex trafficking going on, money laundering, all types of nefarious behavior. And she's coming on a program after the news. It's called Heart to Heart. And she's going to be interviewed by two of our hosts here on the Six Screens, Angela and Dan Clark. You don't want to miss Lisa. That's her name. And she's naming names. She's naming names, Watchtower officials, governing body members. She's not afraid. She's coming on at 9:30. And then we're going to have another special program that'll be on at midnight tonight. So by all means, if you guys can listen in, boy, you'll be able to hear things you never heard before. It's amazing. Well, anyways, every week we report here about child molesters in the Watchtower. And it didn't fail. This week we have another one. And, well, he's in big time trouble. As a matter of fact, a headline off of ABC News in California, Fresno area, it says suspect child abuser arrested after a search warrant served at the Kingdom Hall. I'm saying Kingdom Hall, but they said church. But can you imagine that? A search warrant. They got him. And they had to get a search warrant to get the records from the Kingdom Hall. Yeah, brother Anthony Escobedo. Wow. Well, this was his third arrest in connection with child molestation. He has 15 charges ranging from, you name it, sexual molestation, child pornography. He's a pervert. He's a Jehovah's Witness pervert, and believe me, they have plenty of them. Well, let me do this. I'm gonna play you the clip. Well, why don't I just play the clip, and you can listen to the broadcast. You can see it if you're on YouTube and Facebook. So let's play you the clip. I believe I do have it right here. Let's see if we can't get that up for you, because I want you to see it. I think you'll find it very, very interesting. Let me scroll down here. Just give me a second, and we'll be able to get you the clip. You'll be able to watch it. So let's do that. Let's go to this. Let me get it up here right now, and let me share it. Stay with us. Share. Yeah, this is out of Fresno, California. So let's see what they have to say on the news. So just give us a second, and we'll get it on. Share. All right, just going to have a little commercial on here first, and then it comes on after the commercial, I believe. So stay with us.
Fresno County Sheriff's detectives have arrested a suspected child abuser again after they say they uncovered evidence from a 10th woman who reported abuse in her own childhood. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Warren Armstrong.
And I'm Margot Kim. We are live on ABC 30, Hulu Live, and wherever you stream. Action News reporter Corn Hubbard shows us why the suspect is a free man again, even after prosecutors filed new charges.
A new mugshot shows Anthony Escobedo last Tuesday after his third arrest in connection with the Fresno County Sheriff's investigation. Escobedo was already facing 15 charges ranging from annoying or molesting a child to possession of child pornography to rape. But detectives believe there were still more victims from Escobedo's time as a Jehovah's Witness.
Our investigation led us to believe that there was additional information in the church documents, in more or less their personnel files that they keep on parishioners.
Action News recorded detectives seizing manila envelopes as they served a search warrant last month at Jehovah's Witness churches in Kingsburg and Clovis. Court documents state they found reports naming a previously unknown potential victim. Investigators said an interview with the alleged victim, who's now a grown woman, corroborated a story from one of the earlier victims and provided evidence of an additional alleged crime. Prosecutors filed 5 new felony charges afterwards, and detectives arrested Escobedo. Investigators say they asked the church for the records, but ultimately executed a search warrant to get them. Spokespeople for the Jehovah's Witness National Organization say they're cooperating in the investigation. They told Action News police were contacted about Escobedo's behavior 5 times between 2009 and 2016, which is when the church expelled Escobedo as a member. Quote, to our knowledge, the identity of every victim known to the congregation has been reported to the police. As we understand it, the authorities were contacted on 5 different occasions about various incidents, end quote. Detectives say they're still not sure they have the full picture.
We're going to keep going. We're going to keep digging. We still have more forensic evidence that we're examining. And, if we can find more victims, we're going to.
Escobedo has pleaded not guilty to every charge he's faced so far, and he's bailed out after each arrest. His defense attorney pointed out to me that some of the new charges stem from incidents investigated years ago. Tulare County investigators dropped the case in 2012, citing insufficient evidence, and Fresno County prosecutors dropped another in 2014 for the same reason. But prosecutor Andrew Jan says he now counts 10 victims in at least 3 counties. So he believes Escobedo is too dangerous to be free, and he'll try to convince a judge to keep him in custody.
What we've seen is a progression in terms of his conduct. Everything from minor groping to full-on molestation, and the newest case being an allegation of rape. When we see conduct progress like this is a warning sign that it's only going to get worse from here.
A judge will decide Tuesday whether Escobedo should stay behind bars without bail pending trial. In downtown Fresno, Corin Hoggard, ABC 30, Action News.
Well, there you go. What do you think of that? I mean, that's this guy has he has a rap sheet a mile long. Unbelievable. He's a pervert. He's a Jehovah's Witness pervert, Brother Escobedo. 15 charges ranging from child possession of child pornography to rape. This guy, like I say, he's in big time trouble, and he should be. And yet the witnesses were coddling him. They were dragging their feet when it came to giving the records over to the detectives. And now they're upset, I can tell you just by watching that newscast, that these detectives are not happy. The Watchtower organization, at least the local Kingdom Hall, they weren't cooperative at all. And the Watchtower itself is not cooperative. When they're asked for certain court records, certain documents for court records to be able to see what's going on in congregations, they drag their feet. They're certainly not exemplary when it comes to obeying Caesar, but yet they wanted us to obey Caesar. Well, make sure you get your sticker on your car. Make sure you wear your seatbelt. My goodness gracious, but they don't come forward helping Caesar, do they? Not at all. So he's got 5 felony charges, and I hope they don't let this guy out on bail. This guy is a walking nightmare. Detectives are saying they're not even sure of the full picture. They don't know how much damage this guy has done. They don't know how many children he's raped. The detectives say they're going to keep going on. They're going to get to the bottom of this. They're still not happy. They're not happy with the Kingdom Hall and the elders. So, this is going to be big, and this is getting the Watchtower in big time difficulty. People are seeing it. They are seeing that the Watchtower is not forthcoming when it comes to exposing their own child molesters. You're on with us, Anne Marie. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. We remember when Barbara Anderson, who worked for Bethel at Bethel as a researcher, even writing some of the articles for Watchtower, she made note that Watchtower headquarters had files. And I think, I don't remember how many, but in the thousands, like 1,000 or 2,000, files. But the thing is, Bill Bowen, who stepped down from being an elder to help these victims, these little kids were being molested in so many congregations, when he started to get an idea of just how big this problem was, and then Barbara Anderson contacted him and let him know about these files that Watchtower had. In other words, they knew about this problem for years. She said, in her words, this has been going on forever. But this is just one example, the one you brought out, of a serial child molester that Watchtower knew about, has known about, and has basically been allowing him to continue on in his evil deeds. And I'm further concerned because my brother, a dedicated brother of the Watchtower, I'm wondering if that's even in his congregation because he lives in Fresno. Thank you, Rick.
Yeah, it could be. And the sad part about it, Anne Marie, is your brother could have this pedophile sitting right next to him. He wouldn't even know it. And they're certainly not going to do any research. And my advice really to anyone listening in, if you're a Jehovah's Witness and you have young children, you got to be very, very careful. Look, I'm not just crying out here with no reason. I'm giving you the God's honest truth. There are pedophiles. In fact, from what I do understand, about, I believe there's an average of, no, don't hold me to it, but the last I heard that there's about 2 pedophiles in every congregation. But I mean, I can't support that with any real evidence, but these are numbers that I've heard. I know in some of the Kingdom Halls around here, one of the Kingdom Halls I went to in Lowell, Massachusetts, at one time we had 5 pedophiles. So, you know, they're out there and you don't know it. And even when I was a witness, you don't even think about that. Really, you don't think about a Jehovah's Witness man molesting your children. Oh my goodness. Well, what do you expect? You know, years ago, back in the 1980s, they portrayed what a child molester would look like. And generally it was an older man with a big wrinkly raincoat on, trench coat, and he had a Stetson hat on, and he'd be hiding behind a tree with some candy bars. Well, that's not your typical pedophile. No, that was a bad image. That image should have never been put out there, because you know something? These guys, they wear suits, they go to work like you and I, they look normal. You can't tell if a person in the Kingdom Hall is a pedophile or not. They're not going to stand out. And the ones you think might have problems don't. It's the ones that you don't think of that have the problems do. So I want you to, you know, I can remember I had 5 children. My wife and I had 5 children. 4 of them were daughters. And, you know, they would always come to me, oh, Daddy, can we go? Oh, Sister Smith, they're going to have a sleepover for the girls. Can we go, Daddy? I never thought twice about it. Well, go ahead, guys. I never thought twice. Boy, if I knew what I knew now, there's no way. There is absolutely no way I would let my children go to a Jehovah's Witness sleepover. And then even at conventions. Of course, they don't meet now big arenas. They might never do it again. But I'm going to tell you, even in a big arena, you go to a convention, there's 6,000 people. Oh, Daddy, I have to go to the bathroom. And, you know, in many cases, I mean, I always would take them, but I've seen parents that wouldn't take them. They let the child go to the bathroom themselves. Would you trust that? I wouldn't. I'm telling you, this is a pandemic of pedophiles. It is. This isn't isolated cases. I read about this every week on JW World News. It's just unreal. I wish the witnesses, I really wish the witnesses would wake up, smell the coffee, research some of this stuff. How many television programs do you have to have before it gets through their skull? There's a problem with pedophilia in the organization. And boy, I'll tell you, you name it, all different programs highlighted on various cable news networks as well as on the regular news. NBC, ABC, CBS, they've all talked about it. But how is the witnesses, why are they so oblivious to all of this? It just doesn't add up. These guys are under, well, we know it, they're under some type of mind control. You can't be a sensible, reasonable-minded person and be a staunch Jehovah's Witness. It just doesn't fit. It's like oil and water. It's not going to mix. So, but I'm telling you right now, there's so many people leaving the Watchtower. You guys know it too. But I just wanted to say this. It's really dumbing down. The dumbest of the dumb are staying in. And I use the term here. I'm going to use the term, many witnesses right now, it's so dumbed down. All the smart ones are getting out. But it's so dumbed down that it's like they're, you know, when you're 11 years old, you're in the 5th grade. And, you know, when you're 11, you're kind of still a kid, but now you're becoming a bigger kid, you're becoming an adult. And, you know, there's a lot of things that you just don't come to grips with when you're 11 years old. You don't know if there's an Easter bunny. You don't know if there's a Santa Claus. So I say right now, the witnesses have a mentality of a 5th grade mentality. They're all like 11-year-olds. They're not able to grasp the information at hand. They don't know what's true anymore. They really don't. Hey, you're on with us. Go ahead.
Hey, Rick.
Hey, Dick.
Yeah, I'd like to support what you just said. For many years in the Lowell congregation, I was an usher, and we were always told, if these boys go into the bathroom, go in there with them and make sure everything's okay. I'd say, you know, even my boys, they were like 6 and 9. I said, you know, I don't go to the bathroom with them, make sure they pee in the toilet. I mean, they're 8 and 9 years old. But they had a policy that if a boy went into the men's room, you had to go in there and check on him, because they knew there was plenty of pedophiles. They didn't tell me, I was only ministerial servant, but I'm sure some of the elders knew. And you're right, there was 5 pedophiles at the little congregation, because I knew all 5 of them.
Yeah, Dick. In fact, we know them. And, you know, the sad part about it, I won't name any names here, but I probably should name, in other words, if it's a public record, I'm going to name this person. Well, one of these persons, his name was Carl Brogan. Carl Brogan. He was in the Lowell Sun, right up here where he lived, and he molested his daughter. So I'm not speaking out of hand here, it's public knowledge. But Carl Brogan, he worked for me. I had a company back in the 80s, and he worked for me, and no idea. You know, he didn't have a Stetson hat and a raincoat on. I had no idea. He was a small little guy with glasses, and I just figured, well, he's just a normal guy, but he wasn't. He's a pedophile. So how could you possibly tell? And then another man that I used to get up early in the morning back in the 1980s, and I used to go down to the park, and I would run with him. There was like a racing, like a running track there. And I would run with him. And I did that for a number of months. And he had 5 children. And I later found out that he molested every one of his children. And boy, that was in the Lowell congregation too. And even the congregation I left right here in Wilmington, we had a pedophile there. And it's just amazing to me. And when you're a witness, you don't have any idea, no idea at all, that a pedophile could be sitting right next to you. But there always was a strange way the witnesses handle sex talk. Some of them really were quite open about it. And sometimes I thought it was a little too risque in some of the things they would do. And some of the men I wouldn't trust around my wife. I wouldn't. I just didn't trust them.
Hey.
Oh, yes.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Yeah, I always was told, I heard a story that a lot of times when they go to these prisons and minister or preach to these guys, mostly it was the pedophiles that would listen to them. And guess what? Where would they go when they got out of prison? They go to the Kingdom Hall. I heard that story quite a while back, but.
Well, there was you're right. You're absolutely right. And, you know, there was a man when I lived in Florida, and the Kingdom Hall not too far from me, there was a man that attended the meetings in an orange jumpsuit and a ball and chain. And he would sit there, and they actually even let him answer during the Watchtower, from what I can remember. But, you know, nobody really knew what his problem was. But somebody was studying with him, and they let the prison let him out on Sundays to go to the Watchtower public talk and Watchtower lesson. And he'd sit there in an orange jumpsuit. I mean, wouldn't you kind of scratch your head and say, what's this all about? Probably a pedophile. So, I mean, I'm just saying, I don't know. But when he got out of prison, like you say, Jeff, where's the first place he's going to go? Right to the Kingdom Hall, look for a little kid, if he was one, you know?
Absolutely.
You know what, Rick?
Yeah.
They told us that the Kingdom Hall was the safest place to be, and we believe that. And I've been to 3 different congregations in my life, and there was one pedophile in each congregation. And I didn't find out about one of them, which was my first Kingdom Hall that I've ever been to, until after I got reinstated, that there was an elder there that was a pedophile. And then, let's see, there was a ministerial servant that was a pedophile in my other congregation, Danielson, Connecticut. And then here in Connecticut, there was a pedophile there too, for his own daughter. The other one was for his stepdaughter. And I'm not sure about the elder in my original congregation in Fall River. I'm not sure who, he molested or whatever. But in every single congregation that I was in, there was a pedophile.
Yeah, it makes you wonder under the radar. It does make you wonder. It's something else. But they're out there. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, just another thought. When you go to prison, you're probably going to get raped, no matter who you are. There's a really high degree of homosexuality in there. Homosexuality is a perversion, and so is pedophile. And I don't think it's much of a stretch to go from being a homosexual to being a pedophile. Like I said, it's all a perversion.
Yeah. Did anyone ever feel funny in the Kingdom Hall? Maybe not just around people that you might have thought were a pedophile, but did any of you guys out there, or even women, feel kind of funny the way some of the brothers would look at you, or maybe say things to you that was inappropriate? That happens. I remember one time out in service, and my former wife, and I can remember being in the car group, and there was an elder in there, a younger elder, and we were all sitting in this van together, ready to go door to door. And some people were already out. We were just waiting the car for them to come back. And so the elder put his hand on my wife's leg. And, she kind of reacted. She did not like that. So, on the way home, my wife said to me, "Did you see what he did to me?" I says, "Yeah, but I don't think he meant anything." But I think he did. Now that I know how perverted these people are, I believe he did. I believe that that's what they do. And I felt very uncomfortable around a lot of elders and around a lot of Jehovah's Witness men around my wife. I have to tell you that. Did you guys ever feel that, or vice versa? Boy, I'll tell you, that's...
Hey, Rick, this is Scott from Florida.
Yeah, Scott.
Yeah, we used to have a brother who was of the anointed, and he had a terrible habit of coming up and giving the sisters extremely close personal hugs. And a lot of sisters, my wife, my sister, and others that I knew did not like the way he hugged them. It was just, it's not like a quick hug or something. It was just a little bit too much. Now, last I heard, he's no longer of the anointed. I don't know how that ended up being, but he claimed to be and was giving memorial talks all the time. And he was almost like a rock star. He had people that would follow him around from congregation to congregation wherever he gave talks. It was a big deal to go hear his talks. But at any rate, he's not anymore.
Yeah, well, I've heard so many stories like that, Scott. So, but no, it is. I'm so glad. I feel so much more comfortable being out of that organization. And now we're uncovering. And friends, we're not sitting here trying to make stories up. We wouldn't do anything like that. There's no reason to make stories up. They have enough of their own stories that are true. But this is something that I got really... Yes.
Hey,
yes.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
Yeah, might want to just say, don't take it from Six Screens or Rick. Just go on Google and put in pedophilia Jehovah's Witnesses. Do your own research. I mean, don't take it from us. It's right out there. The information's out there if you want to look for it.
Well, now, Jeff, let me just say now, if you were an active witness right now, a loyal active witness, and you were listening into the Six Screens, you said, "I'm going to put the challenge to these guys. I'm going to punch child molesters in the Watchtower into Google," and all of a sudden, all these sites would pop up. Do you think you would believe it?
Well, I would
Rick,
definitely, at the least, I would be suspicious.
Oh, hold on, Radar. Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd be very suspicious, and I would do my investigation. That's pretty damning especially when you got news reports saying that this is going on, and you could see that on, in Google if you research it. So, Australian Royal Commission for one.
There you go. I mean, and so you'd see it, and at first, because what it was when I first started coming out of the organization, I was kind of reluctant to believe all of this. At first I said, well, maybe people are making it up, but there's enough on there now that people aren't making this up. Very good comment. Thank you. We're gonna go with go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Pixie.
60 years ago, I was a naive, virgin teen girl about 5th grade. This so-called brother had been to prison, and he'd kidnapped his own daughters, and we had him in our house that summer to so-called help them. He said inappropriate things to me that I didn't understand. I said, this is my house. You're going to have to leave, and took it to my dad, and eventually he did leave. But he had kidnapped his own daughters. The wife was fine, and he told lies about her. The girls finally got back with their mother. I went to the man's funeral not to honor him, but to support them when they were 60-year-old adults, and they were still traumatized by the times that they had lived with him. But looking back on it, he had kidnapped his own daughters.
Yeah. So goodness only knows what took place there. I'm glad you were.
All kinds of sad traumas did. And they finally got back with their mother as adults and did the best they could with pretty good marriages and stuff. But he was a wicked man. He was hiding under the auspices of the Watchtower, and he had been in prison and bragged about it to me when I was too young to really understand. And I said, you're leaving my house. I was about 5th grade, but I knew it was my house, and he better leave.
Well, good for you.
And I got my parents to realize it too.
Well, good for you,
And
Pixie.
that was years ago.
Well, I'm glad you kicked him out. That's what deserved to be, not around you or anybody. Well,
none of this is new.
No, it's not new. Nothing new here. But the reason why I even wanted to just delve into this a little bit is I'm trying to really warn Jehovah's Witnesses listening in. We have a number listening in here tonight. I'm just trying to warn them. I'm trying to not, make them so frightened that they can't even. They'll freeze up. They'll be paralyzed. I'm not trying to do that, but I'm trying to make them aware of it, because I would not let my girls. I don't even know if anything ever happened to them. Sometimes people don't speak up, but they could have been molested when they were younger. I don't know. It's a possibility. So I want to bring that up tonight. And this story got my yes, go ahead.
Yeah, what I wanted to say was that when I had plugged in those 3 brothers into that nationwide sex registry site, not one of them, Jehovah's Witnesses names, was on that site, which means that none of those people in the congregations went and complained to the police about it. So they kept it hush-hush, probably because they always say, don't, destroy Jehovah's name or whatever. So a lot of times there's more pedophiles than you really realize, and you can't find it on the sex registry list because no one complained about it to the authorities.
Well, yes, indeed. You're absolutely right. No complaints, no registry. But, in fact, when you stop and think about it, I was wondering if this was going on even back in the 1960s and 1950s. So I did know an older Jehovah's Witness man that got out. He was close to 100 years old, and I talked to him not too long ago. And I said, there's one question I want to ask you. Were there problems with child molesters and pedophilia in congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses back in the 50s and 60s? He says, oh, absolutely. He says, but nobody would say a thing. He says, but the presiding overseer and the servants were aware of it, but nobody would say a thing. Now, this goes way back. If you want to talk about perversion in the Watchtower, this goes way back to, I'd say, Charles Taze Russell. What did his wife call him? A jellyfish. Now, he was a jellyfish. Well, what does that mean? Well, she called him a jellyfish because she said he couldn't keep his hands off of women. geez, you went around all the women to touch them and make them, I'm sure many felt uncomfortable. But also, what about that young woman, Rose Bell? What about her? Now, if you were married to a man and the man said to you, hey, honey, I want this 14-year-old girl to come and live with us. And he seemed to have a little bit of a fetish toward her. Rose Bell was her name. Would you let your husband bring a 14-year-old girl into your home to live with you? I don't think most women would do that. But anyways, Maria somehow, let loose and let him bring this woman in the house. And one day, she was walking by Rose Bell's bedroom, and who's in there kneeling by her bedside? Charles Taze, the husband. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons why they got the divorce. And the Watchtower never really called it a divorce. They wanted to stay away from that word divorce. So what they did, it wrote up on the Watchtower that Maria, that was her name, and Charles, they got separated. They were separated from bed and breakfast. That's how they would describe a divorce. So, do you trust these guys? Do you really trust the Watchtower? I say no. Yes. All right. Okay, before we move to the next story, anything else? And anybody out there have any stories to tell about pedophiles in their congregation? Weird perversion in your congregation? I'd like to hear from if you do. You on with us?
Hey, Rick.
Yes, Randy.
This isn't about pedophiles, but it was something we always thought was weird. We'd even joke about it. My wife and others in the congregation, we had this one elder that we would joke and say he had two wives because he had another woman moved in with him and lived with him. And they were all, it just seemed always strange to us. It just seemed out of the ordinary.
Yeah, there's some extraordinary things that take place in that organization, but they kind of let him do that, huh? I mean, you can't really.
Oh yeah, he was an elder, and there are other things I have seen. One of them might not have been out of the ordinary because the boy was only 16. He'd be there on the back row with his Playboy magazine, and another brother that had his Playboy magazine. Now he didn't hold it out like the 16-year-old. Because he was up in his 70s. And he had his in his book bag, but anytime his book bag was open and you walked past it, you would see it.
That's a shocker. I've got one for you that I never heard anybody else have. This one sister lived with her husband and another brother, Christian brother, so to speak, and they were missionaries. And they had a long-standing three-way. They lived in Florida, and then they were asked to move to Puerto Rico.
So you think there was some behavior going on that was illicit?
They almost bragged about it. Here again, I was a young girl that didn't understand everything, but looking back and putting two and two together and what the dialogue was and how we'd had a lovely dinner at their house, and they lived that way, and she said, nobody's going to tell me I can't live this way, and these two men are brothers in Christ, she'd say, and we live this way, and this is how we live. And they lived that way in Florida, and then they were asked to move to Puerto Rico. And she lived with her husband and another brother, and it was a full-time way they lived.
That is crazy. That is crazy. I mean, well, I guess, hey.
And they were totally out about it, as we say nowadays.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's nutty.
I have an experience.
Go ahead, Debbie.
Well, I've talked about it before. And one of the congregations I was in, there was a brother that had been disfellowshipped and was reinstated when I met him. And I was a single sister with two children, a little boy and little girl, around 5 and 6 years old, that this brother started showing interest in idea that he had just been released from prison after 13 years for being a convicted pedophile. And it seemed like apparently it was common knowledge to everybody else that I knew absolutely nothing about it. My father was an elder, and they are not allowed to talk about reasons people had been disfellowshipped, because that's supposedly a private committee matter. So he didn't warn me about this brother, even though this brother, quote unquote, every weekend was picking up my little boy after service and taking him to different sports that all had to do with balls. Baseball, football, basketball, bowling, golf, and things like that. And here I was really happy that this brother that I had known nothing about his past was showing an interest in my little boy. But I was devastated because we were thinking about marriage, and then one day I heard what I thought was a rumor. Usually rumors are a play on the truth, but they were actually serious, it turned out, about this brother having been a convicted pedophile. And I said, oh, no, he wasn't. Because I said, if he was, I know my mom or dad would have said something to me by now. But they never did, because they assumed that I knew all about this brother's past. But nobody had ever gossiped about him in front of me, because apparently they also assumed I knew and just didn't care. But any decent mother would never hand over her little 6-year-old boy to a convicted pedophile. He had molested like 26 little boys.
Wow.
And a little girl. And anyway, long story short, which usually doesn't happen with my stories, but when I found out, I was absolutely infuriated with my parents, because that was their grandson. And how could they let that happen? And why would they let me think it was encouraging that the brother was showing interest in
Wow,
my son?
that was terrible, Debbie. That's a terrible. I'm glad you got away from that goon. I'm glad you got away from him. Thank you for sharing your story. We all have these stories to tell. Okay, we've got somebody else on with us right now. Go ahead. Somebody's got their speakerphone on. Is that you, Debbie?
Yes.
All right. Someone's got their speakerphone on. All right. That's a 170 area code. If you want to come on, turn your speakerphone on and hit *6 and come on and tell us what you want to tell us. Area code 670. All right. So yeah, sometimes what happens is you're getting feedback. You might be listening to YouTube at the same time to get the phone on. It's going to do that because you're on YouTube as well. But I wanted to bring up too. Well, kind of like on the subject. Perversion, pedophilia, sexual innuendos in the Watchtower are being suggested. How about you guys? I mean, have you known people who are Jehovah's Witnesses and their mate dies, and within a matter of a couple of months all of a sudden they're remarried to another sister. I've witnessed this a number of occasions in congregations I've been in, and that makes you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, you got to let the, you got to let the dust settle a little bit, but I have found that happened in the Jehovah's Witness religion a lot. One mate dies, and within a short period of time, all of a sudden they got another mate they get married to in 2 and 3 months sometimes. And I witnessed this on a few occasions, and I'm wondering, gee, was something going on before? How can someone fall in love just in a couple of months like that and then get married? That's awful odd. But it does happen a lot. And I'm sure you guys have seen it in your congregations too. But just a thought.
Hey, Rick, I've seen that happen several times. I thought that was the major MO for witnesses, because I can share like several stories, and I just grew up in like basically one congregation. And to give you the like all-time story about something, a brother, I'm in New York, of course. He moved down south, South Carolina. And this sister, after a while, his first wife died. And then because his sister-in-law, my mother studied with his family and his sister-in-law. But anyway, after a couple of months after his wife died, he was saying that, oh, there's a sister in the congregation. She's bugging me. I don't like get married, this, that, and the other. And then a couple of months later, 3, 4, 5 months later, they're getting married. And they did get married. And the thing is that after they were married for a couple of years, but he did get sick naturally and die. And his kids were my age. We grew up together. She just took care of everything. She basically took the money and ran, because he had property in South Carolina. The kids didn't get anything at the funeral that was at the Kingdom Hall. His kids told me that she wasn't even there. She basically took the money and ran. A professional JW, what do you call it, married widow or professional widow or whatever.
Wow. Yeah, well, I mean, you've seen it. I've seen it. So, something could be up there too.
Hey, Rick?
Yes.
Rick, Scott Ford again. We had 2 brothers in our congregation in Riverview that did that. The one brother was very elderly. He was retired. We used to go to his book study all the time. He was well known, well liked, and his wife had been sick for a while. She passed away, and within about 2 months, he was remarried from some woman up in Tallahassee, some sister. Now, I don't know how he knew her. I mean, this is somebody that we've never met, never saw, never heard of. And yet all of a sudden I was shocked to find out that he was remarried. And then another brother, another elder in the hall, also same thing. His wife passed away. And the next thing you know, a couple of months later, he's remarried. So yeah, it doesn't take long sometimes.
Oh yeah. Well, no.
Witnesses, I think that's their regular thing, because I noticed it, like the brother just said. I think that's what witnesses do, because they think that sex before marriage is wrong, so they get married like within a couple of months. I can name many instances like that. And the brother that just spoke of a few. I mean, that's what they do.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting you say that, because it's bigger when we think. As a matter of fact, Scott, you mentioned Riverview. I lived in Brandon. For 10 years, and Riverview is the next town over. Yeah, so you may
have known him. His last name was Calvo.
No, I didn't know him, but we had the.
He was a very, I would call him a very virile brother. He weightlifted. He took all kinds of vitamins, and he would like to shake your hand, and he'd grab your hand, and he'd start squeezing it, and he'd smile at you. And he basically let you squeeze his hand as hard as you could. And this was a thing with him. And basically, he was letting you know that I'm stronger than you are. And he was. I mean, for an old man, he was strong.
Yeah.
I'm in my 30s, and I couldn't beat him. But he was a very virile man, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea about his personal life.
Well, no, we don't. But when I was in Brandon, we had I went to the Brandon Hall, then I went to the Sefner Hall. And in the Sefner Hall, we had a Watchtower study conductor, and he was married to a really nice lady. Geez, we all loved her. And she died suddenly from a heart attack, but she was a wonderful lady. And she died, and geez, just a few months later, all of a sudden, he marries this other woman. So everyone is kind of scratching their head. And even the son, I knew the son, and he was kind of all upset that his father got married so fast after his mother died. But that happens. I mean, I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do, but the reason why I even bring it up is I'm wondering if something was going on while they were married. For something to move that fast, I just think that. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong. All right. Well, I think we beat that subject to death, unless someone has one last comment.
I do. I just thought of something here. A
Yeah.
sister here again in New York. She died of cancer. Her husband was a former. He used to play with the Giants or the Jets, so they were called the Titans. Either team was called the Titans. I'm not sure which one. Anyway, they went to the congregation and met in my hall at a different time. She died of breast cancer. And she had some sisters from her congregation while she was dying, and this has been verified. It sounds like something that would be made up. She had sisters come to her hospital room and ask, "Who do you want to marry your husband?" Do you believe that?
That is bizarre.
That is, it really happened. It sounds pathetic, but it really happened. While she was in her hospital room, some sisters visited her and say, "What sister do you want to marry? Do you want your husband to marry after you're gone?"
That is terrible. Yes,
it is, and it is verified. Yes,
that is tacky. That is tacky. You know?
Yes.
Jeez.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay. Go ahead. We got more callers. You want to speak up? Go ahead. You're on with us. All right.
Rick, can you hear me?
Who is it?
This is Betty calling from Canada.
Hello, Betty from Canada.
Hi. I'm sorry, I don't mean to take you off the thread of your conversation of remarriages, but I want to go back to the pedophile thing.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
All right. I'm not going to talk about the details of the situation with my father. My father right now is 86 years old, and when he was 15 years old, he was molested twice by a Jehovah's Witness. Do the math. That's 71 years ago. That's how long the Watchtower has had this problem. And when my father talked to his mother, he was a kid, what happened, she told him to be quiet about it. Don't bring reproach on Jehovah's name, which is complete backwards thinking. It actually brings more reproach on God to not report to the authorities. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, that's how they think.
Well, thank you for sharing that with us, Betty. Golly sakes. Yeah. Jeez, we all have stories to tell. All right, one more call. Go ahead. Thank you, Betty. All right, one more call on the subject. We'll move to the next story. Who wants to speak up? You're on with us? Okay, if not, we'll go. All right, let me just...
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
This is Debbie. I just wanted to say, I just listened to what I said, and it sounded like I said yes to having the background noise going, and I didn't. I had my TV paused, so I'm very careful to try to show respect in that way.
All right, good, fine. Well,
I just really think it was me.
Well, no, it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell sometimes. We have so many people calling in, and you know, the phone is open, and it's a microphone, and it's very hard sometimes, but you know, we don't never know. I leave it on myself here by mistake. All right, so we're gonna mute everyone here for now, and we'll move to the next story. So let's do that. When you're done talking, you guys can always hit *6, and that will mute you. Let's move to the next story. You're on JW World News. That's the news the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about, but we talk about it every Saturday night. We've been doing it for 16 years. Always something to talk about. But you know what got my attention this week is double standards in the Watchtower with illegal immigrants. There's a lot of illegal immigrants that are attending Kingdom Halls, and they're identifying themselves as Jehovah's Witnesses. Did you know that? Maybe you're in a congregation, if you're listening in, and there's some illegal immigrants in your congregation. Well, if you attended a Spanish or are attending a Spanish congregation or some other language, you would see that there would be many illegal immigrants. And the illegal immigrants, it's, this right now, there's two classes of witnesses, right? There's the great crowd class, and then there's the anointed class. But now we have a third class. It's a third class. It's the immigrant class. The Jehovah's Witnesses do have immigrant status. They are treating them somewhat different. So they are another class of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, an illegal immigrant, according to the Watchtower, they cannot be an elder. They cannot be a pioneer. They cannot be a Watchtower study reader. They're supposedly not to pray at field service meetings or comment at Watchtower studies or conventions and other activities as well. They're not supposed to do this. Now, but on the other hand, and I'm going to say my heart goes out to some of these people, and I'll tell you why. They do get assignments from the Watchtower. They are entitled to scrub toilets, for example. They can do yard work. They can clean the Kingdom Hall and convention halls. Yeah, they're able to do that. Kingdom Hall maintenance. So there you go. They cannot do some of the things that normal witnesses would do. But on the other hand, the Watchtower does take advantage of them. I'm thinking if the Watchtower really was this honest organization, I'm not saying you turn these immigrants in. I'm not saying that. But you think that they would kind of comply with the law and even say, brothers who are illegal immigrants, that you really should move in a direction to become legal. And there's no encouragement there, from what I understand. But there is obviously the Watchtower is taking advantage, and these local Kingdom Halls are taking advantage of these these illegal immigrant Jehovah's Witness immigrants. The Watchtower always is promoting how wonderful they are and how law-abiding they are and how helpful they are. But are they really helping the illegal immigrant? That they're really not. But they will take the illegal immigrants' time, money, assets. They will use them to cut grass on the property, and they will do an amazing work for the Watchtower. And yet they get diddly squat. In fact, some have written into me that in some congregations they do have different rules for immigrants. So some are allowed to be pioneers or handle the mics. But in no instance here, researching this information, have I seen that an illegal Jehovah's Witness can be an elder or a ministerial servant. But as I said just a few minutes ago, I feel a little bad. There's so many people right now coming into the country, and I know it's not a good thing. I don't like seeing all these illegal people coming in at the border, but they're coming in, and many of them are landing up in Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Halls. They're being love bombed, and they're finding friends in this country, and the Jehovah's Witnesses are opening the door, and they're giving them cleaning privileges. Now, I just want to, I'm going to just say this. As I was researching some of this information on Jehovah's Witness illegal immigrants, there's something that went through my head. We're all human. And, I think it's only fair that you can kind of work with other humans and be nice to them and be kind to them. But what I'm seeing here is, for the most part, the congregations are not that totally kind to the illegal immigrants. And let me just tell you how it must be. So stop and think about this. Just imagine if you were an illegal immigrant. Now, in no way am I suggesting that I like all this illegal immigration. I'm not saying it, but I'm just trying to put this into the context of the Kingdom Hall. Now, just suppose you're a Jehovah's Witness illegal immigrant. I want you to think about this. So here you are, you're in this country, you're basically working under the table. You're working for a very low wage. You have to rely on public transportation. You don't have a car. You need a license. You can't get that in many states. Some states, illegal immigrants can get a license, but in most states, you can't get a license. So you have to rely on public transportation. And so you have all this pressure. You might even be raising a family, and you're putting hours in the ministry, and you go into the Kingdom Hall, and you're using there to, being used there to cut the lawn and clean the toilets. How sad is that? I mean, really, imagine the stress. Imagine the stressful situation. It's difficult enough being a regular citizen of a country and going to the Kingdom Hall. Imagine what it'd be like for an illegal immigrant. And boy, I'll tell you, that is going to be one of the worst classes of Jehovah's Witnesses there is, right? So I don't know where you are. I don't know what congregation you're in, but I just wanted to bring this up tonight because there is a lot of immigrants and illegal immigrants that are crossing the border down in Texas and down here in California and Arizona. You see it every day. And a lot of these immigrants are landing up in the Jehovah's Witness Kingdom Halls. Now, how is that happening? They are really love bombing the immigrants. Let me tell you that. They are. Our president would be happy to see the Jehovah's Witnesses love bombing his immigrants. He would love that. So I just wanted to bring that up. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I just thought it would be newsworthy. I thought it would be newsworthy. So anyways, I mean, I don't think it's getting too much of a buzz here, but I do think that it's something that they are taking advantage of. Okay, Ron, with us. Go.
I thought the Kingdom Halls were all. I thought they were all shut down though. How are they getting cleaning privileges?
Well, I mean, they're still.
Everything's still on.
Yeah, they're still maintaining the mic. The lawn still has to be cut. The toilets still have to be cleaned.
Oh, okay.
So they're still going in.
I mean,
yeah.
But like these illegal immigrants, they wouldn't even be able to listen to the meetings. They wouldn't have internet access or anything.
Well, I'm sure that they would. Well, they probably all get together. I'm sure some of them do all right, and so they have access to it. So they get on Zoom. But yeah, so they're taking advantage of the illegal. But I mean, they're not just the witnesses, but I think a lot of people are. I mean, a lot of people are taking advantage of these immigrants.
Well, sure. well, you guys are always talking about human trafficking on here, so you know a lot of that's going on.
Well, you want to stay tuned. You want to stay tuned for the next program, Mike. You want to hear about some strange.
Yeah.
So you stay tuned for that.
Yeah. Well, that woman needs to go on. She needs to go on the Alex Jones.
Well,
show.
no, I know, and I know what you're gonna say. Yeah, I know what you're gonna say. Okay, go ahead. You're on with us. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rick, this is Zachary. I wanted to get a little clarification on this. These three classes of witnesses. What were the three classes you were saying?
Well, we have the anointed class, we have the great crowd class, and now we have the illegal immigrant class.
Okay, can I comment about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And I'm going back to a while ago when I was in a foreign language congregation. Well, this is the late 80s. I was in a foreign language congregation, and they had people. I'm going to use the word undocumented instead of illegal, immigrants. I'm just going to say undocumented.
He's the Biden lover showed up.
Now knock it off, Mike. Knock it off.
Yeah. No, Mike, I don't, he's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. I was in a French-speaking congregation. The large majority of them were Haitian. The publishers in my congregation were Haitian. And first of all, the witness doctrine, there's no three classes. Everybody knows that. There's a anointed class who have, they say, the heavenly hope. And there's the other sheep, the great crowd, who they say have the earthly hope. And if a person is an undocumented person, they still fall in one of those two classes. There's not a third class called illegal alien class or illegal immigrant class. We know that.
Well, I
And
was just
come over it.
no. I mean, I was just making fun. I mean, I know there isn't officially, but I just figured it would. Yeah.
Explain to us why they're so great about these illegal guys in here. No, explain it. I want to know. You said you won't say they're illegal. They're undocumented. I want you to explain what's so great about it.
I'm using the term undocumented instead of illegal immigrant.
Yeah, because you don't think they're illegal.
Okay, Mike.
That's my definition. Rick, I'd like to continue.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So what do they do? What happens when you have a person who is undocumented? Their status is shaky. You know, a lot of them were witnesses before they came to the United States. That's the first thing. So I remember being in the congregation, and there were these brothers who gave these really in-depth comments. And then I found out that they were people who did not have legal status. They didn't have all their papers in order. And so the thing is, they're not able to have positions with what you call exemplary positions. They're treated just like all other witnesses, but those exemplary positions are the positions that they don't get to hold, like auxiliary pioneering or regular pioneering, or going into Bethel service, or being appointed as elders or ministerial servants. Any of those, what are called exemplary positions, they don't get. I didn't notice them being assigned to clean the bathroom any more than any other witness would clean the bathroom. So that was interesting to hear your description, but that's the way it was. What was explained to me was, in the eyes of the Creator, in the eyes of Jehovah, boundaries, borders between one country and another, those are not his borders that were drawn. And so that's why a person who didn't have documented status could still become one of Jehovah's Witnesses. They could still be baptized, but they could not be, they could not hold an exemplary position. And that's the excellent, that's how I understood it.
Well, that's good. Well, thank you. Thank you, Zach, for thank you for bringing that.
Make sense?
Oh, yeah, makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. No, in fact, I mean, I wasn't, trying to convolute it.
You were doing a segment. It was entertaining.
Yeah. So I figured that I wanted to bring that up, but I mean, it's not really a real class, but I do believe that because some of these immigrants, they work hard, Zach. I have to tell you that. A lot of the Guatemalan people and the Mexican people coming to this country, the Haitian people, they work hard. They really do. And, they're going to, and they'll go to the Kingdom Hall. They'll cut the grass. They'll do everything. And I'm sure the congregations are overloading their workload,
Well,
hey, Rick, this is Scott. I can tell you were being facetious about the third class myself, but I will tell you here in Florida, since you do have a lot of Hispanics,
and so they didn't have a lot of correct.
Yeah.
It was we met at the Brooklyn Assembly Hall, the Lamar Theater. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
All right, yeah, we got Scott. Go ahead, Scott. What were we going to say? I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that I did realize that you were being facetious. Florida, you have a lot of Hispanics, and we did have a Hispanic hall that shared our hall. And while I honestly can't say that I know the status of the Spanish brothers, I will tell you that the elders, and I do mean elders, used to very verbally voice how they felt that the Hispanic brothers never showed up to help do grounds work, to do major projects, cleanups, things of that sort, and never paid their fair share of the hall. So I can tell you, there was a fair amount of griping that went on by a lot of the, white brothers against the Hispanic brothers because they didn't feel like they helped out and did their part. So there's definitely some differences, I think, in the way they're thought of.
Yeah, well, no doubt. I mean, I would think so, but maybe in some congregations it's not that way. But I know that they would be willing to step forward and do the work that a lot of the regular witnesses wouldn't do. They're workers. They love working, and they'd work hard. And not only that, I also want to say that I'm sure the witnesses now, as Zachary just said, some migrate here, and some were Jehovah's Witnesses before they got here. But I'm going to tell you something. This is ripe recruiting ground for the Jehovah's Witnesses. These immigrants, many of them are displaced. They're hiding from the law. They're trying to make a go in a brand new country. They don't have a lot of relatives and friends with them. They want to make new friends. Talk about being ripe to recruit into a cult. Boy, it's a perfect storm for the witnesses. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they're going to recruit probably half of the immigrants coming into the country. That's what cults do. All right. Well, let's move on here. Let's see what else is going on. So there's a story I wanted to bring up here. And, we've talked about this before, but it deserves talking about again, because right now, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they are not going door to door. They are not, out with their carts. So they're not really witnessing like they used to. They're now witnessing by writing letters for the most part. And they're also calling people on the telephone. This is going to be a very monotonous way to preach to people. Imagine all day long sitting at your desk or on your bed or wherever you are, and you're writing letters to people, handwritten letters all day long. You talk about boring. That is going to be the epitome of boredom. But now we are seeing that Jehovah's Witnesses are getting some backlash. Now, this is an older video, but I wanted to play this, and I wanted to thank Christy Ann. I do see she listens into the 6 Screens and YouTube and all of that, but she had it on her channel, her YouTube channel this week, on how the witnesses now, because they're running out of places to send letters to. I mean, how many you're covering the territory, you're writing letters. How many letters can you write to the same person? So what the witnesses are really doing now, they're expanding. They are expanding their obituary recruiting practices. Do you know what that is? Obituary recruiting practices. Yeah, they're going to find ways to get on obituaries online and write a letter on how becoming a Jehovah's Witness can give you hope for the loved one that just died. I think it's a little bit over the top, but I'm going to play a video. And in this video, there's a woman that's terribly upset because the witnesses wrote on her father's obituary. She was very upset about it. I want you to listen to it. Then we can bring in more information here. I think you'll find it very fascinating. Christy Ann, thank you for your YouTube channel. I want to give a little shout out to you. You're doing a great job. Keep up the good work. So let's play the video. Let me just make sure that we got it here for you. Let me get into my StreamYard. Let's share the video. Let's do that right now. Give me a second. And I want you to see this. This is witnesses at a new low. Witnesses at a new low. Well, let's listen to what they have to say. It's a news story. Christy Ann's production. Let's watch it.
Losing a loved one and seeking comfort in messages from friends and family only to find religious propaganda. That's what happened to Vanessa and her family. After losing her father, she went online to her father's online memorial book. And instead of being greeted with messages from friends and family, instead she found multiple messages trying to recruit new members to a faith with no connection to neither her or her family. Jehovah's Witnesses.
3 of the first messages that came in were actually not from people who knew him. They were from people recruiting for the Jehovah's Witnesses religion.
One of the messages on her dad's memorial said, "While words fail to capture the pain of losing a loved one, we look forward to a time when words will fail to capture the joy of having our Heavenly Father, Jehovah, return your dear one as promised in John 5:28, Isaiah 33:8, Revelations 21:35. Kindly accept my condolences. More information at jw.org.
I realize that it's common practice to recruit, and that's part of a mandate of the religion. That's fine. I found it very upsetting to read these messages. They had nothing to do with my father or my family. They were directing me to their website and directing me to beliefs that aren't my own, beliefs that I don't share.
The messages were left by people who claimed to be volunteers. Vanessa responded to the messages and asked how they knew her father. They acknowledged they didn't, and when she asked who they volunteered for, one user directed her to the Jehovah's Witness website. When we reached out to the ministry, they denied any knowledge of this campaign. In a statement to City News, they say, "Our organization does not sponsor any proselytizing campaigns in funeral homes. If an individual is moved by love and faith to share their condolences and the Bible's comforting words with a person in grief, that is a personal choice." They did not respond to our questions about whether this behavior is accepted by the faith or if it goes against protocols for recruiting new members.
You're already feeling so many emotions, and to see something like that, it's very, very upsetting.
Now, we did speak with a few funeral directors who say this is something that they do see from time to time, but they couldn't say whether or not this is part of an ongoing trend.
Well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think of that? Why? What do you think of that? Unbelievable. But anyways, I wanted to bring that to your attention here tonight because right now Jehovah's Witnesses, they're finding anybody and everybody they can write a letter to. They're running out of people to do it, so now they're writing to funeral homes. They're writing on obituary columns online. This is really, it's a little bit tacky, right? I would think it is. I don't know what you guys think, but this isn't anything new. I mean, not too long ago, many Jehovah's Witnesses would actually work the cemeteries. Maybe you can remember that. I can remember it. And actually, the car group would actually go out to a cemetery, of all places, and actually even during a burial, if you can believe that. And they would start sharing the good news, as they would say. And witnesses would visit these graves of the ones that were, in grief. And they would try to give them information that could give them some hope for the future. Now, that's a little bit hitting below the belt, isn't it? Well, that was just back in the 80s. I don't know if you guys were involved in that or not. But Jehovah's Witnesses, they have to sell their religion now by emotion and coercion. Scriptural discussions on doctrine are not working. They got to get you emotionally involved. And we know that's true. You take a look at the videos they're producing and the music. It's all emotional. It appeals to the emotions. And we realize that, the music, you guys listen to all these new Jehovah's Witness songs, they touch your heart. Some of them pretty good. I have to tell you, some of them pretty good. And even the videos are pretty good. But they realize that they're not going to reach people on their biblical doctrine. Are you kidding me? They don't know how to even present Christian doctrine. They've attempted it and they messed it up for many years. Now, I don't know if you guys ever went to a cemetery or not. I can vaguely remember when I was younger, maybe in my early 20s, of going with a car group there, but I wouldn't do it today. I would let that go. I wouldn't go to a cemetery trying to witness to someone. But you know what really gets me mad is even when this news station contacted Watchtower, and, they're saying, well, we really don't encourage it per se. We, sometimes people want to do it on their own. Well, wait a minute. I went back and I found some information from the Awake magazine. So they're saying that, if people want to do it on their own, that's fine. Well, take a look at this in the 2001 January 22nd edition. Well, that's today, isn't it? But that's going back to 2001. I found this article. Now listen to this. I'm going to read you this. Now, why would they print this in a magazine, a Wake magazine, suggesting that, witnesses can do it on their own? They were trying to get other witnesses to follow this witness's example. Listen, I'm going to read you verbatim right from the Awake magazine, 2001 edition, January. I asked a visiting nurse to hold the newspaper for me. Together we read the obituaries and select some. Then I tell the nurse what thoughts I would like to include in a letter to the relatives of the one who died. And the nurse types the letter. You got it? So this woman's in a nursing home. She has a nurse by her side. They're looking at the obituary together of people who died in the paper. And then the witness wants the nurse to type a letter that she can send along with a brochure to one of these people that is grieving. So that's what she was doing. It's right in the Awake magazine. So would you say that, why would the Watchtower put that in there if they were not kind of encouraging some of the witnesses to do this? So these guys are bald-faced liars. I don't know what else I could call them. But then also, let's take a look here. Let's take a look here at our Kingdom Ministry, April 2008, page 8. Well, that's not too long ago, right? Some funeral homes have appreciated having some appropriate literature on hand for grieving families. At times, funeral notices appearing in the newspaper have opened the way for writing a brief, comforting letter to bereaved family members. Yeah, that's right out of the Kingdom Ministry. But the Watchtower is telling this news station that, some witnesses will do it on their own. Well, the Watchtower is encouraging them to do it. And this is even worse. Kingdom Ministry, October 1994, page 7. You may wish to visit local funeral homes in your territory to see if they would like to have copies on hand to comfort bereaved families. Or you might tactfully approach grieving ones in cemeteries on occasion when they return to visit the grave of a loved one. This is, like I said earlier, this is tacky. Would you want to go to a grave site and hop out of your car and, there's a grieving person kneeling next to the grave? I'm going to go up and give them a brochure on how they're going to see their loved one again someday. Would you do that? That's tacky, in my opinion. And I would think a person who does something like this, that they could be courting danger. Really. When people are grieving, people can get pretty ugly. I'm gonna bring some. Yes, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, Rick, they're just trying to catch somebody at a very vulnerable time so they can lure them in. That's all that's about.
Yeah, well, I don't know what else it would be about, but it's really, I think it's not good to do that. I really don't. Did someone else want to say something? You're on with us. Go ahead. All right.
Like, if you remember from the 60s, do you remember that tract for the dead they used to give out? Because I remember my mother and I was growing up, the society printed something called a tract for the dead. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Because I remember that's another, like I said, with the dead, they will always deny that they don't make their move on people when somebody dies. But they had that tract for the dead, because I know you're not in New York, but back in 65 and 66, there was a fire here and 12 firemen were killed. And I remember my mother sent a tract to each one of the widows of the firemen. I'm sure Catholic people send a little prayer, those little prayer cards or whatever. But my mother sent, now she probably wasn't the only witness, that sent a tract for Hope for the Dead, Hope for the Dead, a tract for the dead. And she did get a few handwritten. Back in the day, there was no, email or whatever. She did get a few handwritten responses. Nothing saying that they were going to turn to be a Jehovah's Witness, but she did get a few responses from that.
Well, that's interesting, but I would be willing to say, Shirley, that the Jehovah's Witnesses are probably the only religion that would ever pull a stunt like that off. I really mean it.
Yeah,
I really do.
Because like I said, they will deny that, no, we don't make a move on people like that. They always say that. If you confront them and say, why do you move in on people that say, well, we just give them a hope to see their dead ones again. But then when you think about it, the so-called worldly people, they think they're going to see them in heaven. So what are you changing? What are you telling them that they didn't believe in anyway?
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy. But I'm going to tell you something, as I was saying, when a person is grieving, they can have a serious attitude. You got to be careful. You got to really be careful. Grief creates anger. They just lost a loved one. Then you get somebody coming up and approaching them and going to try to, give you some story about they're going to see the loved one again. It's just not the right time to do it. I'm not saying that Christians shouldn't do it at some point, but not when a person's grieving at the gravesite. Now, I don't know if you guys remember the movie. In fact, I remember seeing the movie years ago. It was Paul Newman was in the movie. It was called The Verdict. Did you see that movie? Oh, it was a good movie. And Paul Newman, well, he played a burnt-out lawyer who wasn't doing well. And before he got his big case, he was known as an ambulance chaser. Well, he was trying to make money off of, people's sickened conditions, accidents, and sue and make money doing that. So he was trying to make money any way he could just to keep his profession alive. So he went to a funeral home. If you saw the movie, it was really great. So Paul Newman goes to the funeral home and he mixes in with a bunch of mourners, and he's pretending to be one of the mourners at this funeral. And he starts passing out business cards, to have people who have lost loved ones. I'm just going to mute some people here. Hold on one second. Just going to mute some people. So he was going around passing out business cards, trying to drum up business for his law firm, because maybe the person died an untimely death of an accident or whatever. So he thought that'd be a great way to get some business. The same way the witnesses are trying to get business, recruiting people into the Watchtower when they do this. So I don't know if you saw the movie, but he's passing business cards out. So one of the mourners, in fact, he was the son. He was the son of the person who died. And he sensed that, Paul Newman going around here handing cards out was pretty nasty. So he got very angry and he threw Newman out of that place and kicked him down the street. People get angry and they don't want to be intruded upon when they're in grief. They don't want to be visited by a Jehovah's Witness at a cemetery. Jehovah's Witnesses, and this is what really gets me, Jehovah's Witnesses spend more time trying to recruit people into their cult than they do encouraging and helping other sick Jehovah's Witnesses. There's so many Jehovah's Witnesses that are in nursing homes. The witnesses never pay any attention to them. There's so many Jehovah's Witnesses who are sick at home, never get a visit. In fact, I got information that came into me to the 6 screens a while back, and this was pretty sick. I'm going to read you what the person told me. He says, my father died last year. His father was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. He says, my father died last year after a long illness, and then suddenly COVID took him. Despite being an elder, pretty much his entire adult life, he had next to no visits from congregation members all the long time that he was in the hospital and in care. So here we have an elder, all of his life being an elder, goes in the hospital into a nursing home, never gets any of the witnesses to visit him. And his Zoom funeral was the typical charade of witnesses relating how much he meant to them, how much he did for Jehovah, how much he sacrificed for the congregation, and how he was an example of good faith to follow. What a crock of baloney. No one even visited him when he was in the hospital, when he was in the nursing home, and now they're all crying at the Zoom meeting. So, and then the rest of the meeting, according to the information I got here, the 6 screens, the rest of the meeting, after, saying what a great follower of Jehovah he was, it was spent in recruiting and guilt tripping others. That's exactly what happens at a Jehovah's Witness funeral. Well, you want to make sure that you connect with Jehovah before you die, so you have an opportunity to live forever on paradise earth. It is revolting. It's inhumane, but they are indoctrinated to believe this, to believe all this baloney. And they feel they're giving a good witness when they can witness to someone in grief. I don't know. Did you guys ever go to a gravesite? Would you? Do you think it's a good? Yes.
Hey, Rick, this is Justin. I was just going to mention, as a matter of fact, today I was on a Zoom. My old roommate at Bethel, his mother died, and they had it on Zoom there. As a matter of fact, I got a chance to see a lot of old Bethelites that I knew from way back. And I'm a PMO, as I've stated before. And you're correct. At the end, they did do some slight recruiting as well. But I would say, toward the beginning of the funeral presentation, they did mention a little bit about her background and where she was from, and and different things like that. But toward the end, they did mention about if this is your first time, make sure you speak to one of the brothers about a personal Bible, a home Bible study, or what have you. But one thing I wanted to mention too, and I don't know if you was going to transition into this a little bit later in the program, but one of the recent letters that came out to the body of elders was about encouraging the young ones. And I was just going to transition the conversation that the organization is really, really losing the young ones. They're not interested in signing up for Bethel, regular pioneering, any of the schools, SKE, different things like that. And they're really focused on that. But me and another brother was speaking about that. He's an elder, and he doesn't know I'm PMO, but he was asking me, what did I think the problem was? And I told him, I said, well, the organization just doesn't offer anything for the young ones if they're not interested in being a regular pioneer. They need to make a transition. But I also mentioned to him as well is that a lot of the hardcore Jehovah's Witnesses from years ago, I can name at least 10 to 15 couples that never had children. The society always discouraged having children. They had an article come out, responsible childbearing, how you view it. So we're not reproducing ourselves, some of the ones who were the hardcore witnesses who would bring up their children to be a pioneer, Bethelite, or what have you. That's just not happening. And the ones who, and I'm not saying the witnesses who did have children, they're not raising them properly or what have you, but they're not interested in that. They don't have the interest as we did years ago. These kids are going to the internet. They're watching the reviews. And if they see something they don't like, they're out of here. But they're really focusing on that. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts were on that letter that came out and if you heard about it.
Yeah, well, no, I didn't hear much about it. I didn't, no.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a letter to the body of elders stating that they need to be encouraging the young ones in the congregation. It came out, I think Lady C and JT mentioned it on their site. Like I said, my buddy up in Hartford, Connecticut, he mentioned it to me that, that's their new focus, is to get the young ones in the congregation interested in being regular pioneers, signing up for Bethel. What can they do to encourage that? Because what they're going to start doing now, they mentioned it in the letters, that they're going to make it where younger people can be elders. You know, it used to be.
Okay, no,
I band.
I got you now. No, we did discuss that. We discussed that a couple weeks back with the younger ones. They're now wanting younger brothers to become elders in their 20s. Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And you know, if they don't treat the older ones right, they discard them. Go ahead, Rick. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you.
Oh no, I'm all set. Somebody else was just coming in there. Yeah, we've got to get the 170 area code. You got to get off speakerphone. Get off speakerphone. Get on regular phone. All right.
We've got to get the 170.
We gotta mute that person. Okay. Well, no, that's good. Well, thank you, brother, for chiming in with us. We always appreciate hearing from you. You got a good radio voice too, by the way. Have you ever thought about pursuing a career in radio?
You know, I've heard that all my life, Rick. You know, I guess I missed my calling.
Yeah, you miss your calling. You got a lot of good resonance. You sound good. You get nice and clear voice. Good. Well, thank you for chiming in with us tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, there you have it. Boy, I'll tell you what, the witnesses, boy, resorting to, writing letters to anybody and everybody. You run out of places to write letters to, so you might as well write letters to obituaries. I don't know, the next time you probably see them writing in classified ads. Someone's trying to sell, maybe someone's trying to sell a exercise equipment bike or something. And then maybe the next place the witnesses would write is in the classified ad. I notice you like being physically fit, but we all grow old and die. And how would you like to live forever? They'll come up with some type of a theme. I wouldn't doubt it if the next place the witnesses start witnessing is in classified ads. They're getting desperate. They're getting very desperate. Hey, you're on JW World News. That's the news the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. But we talk about it here. We talk about it here every Saturday night and every other Sunday. Yeah, I just wanted to bring this news item up. There's a letter. There is now a letter that is floating around to the different. Well, it's an electronic letter. It's an email letter, but it's a JW contributor newsletter. Well, you say, well, Rick, what is that? Well, what is it? I don't have a copy of it here. I don't have the PDF letter copy, but I think I understand what's going on here. A lot of donations now to the Watchtower, it's all done on the internet, electronically, right? So now what you have is if you want to make a donation to the Watchtower, you can do it right online, right off of their website. They'll give you a link and you can say, okay, I want to send $50 to the Watchtower. Now, what they're doing, boy, I'll tell you what, you want to be careful sending money to an organization like the Watchtower, because once they grab a hold of you, they got you for life. So now what it seems like they are doing is, okay, I want to give $50 to the Watchtower. So this is all electronic. It's all now digitally captured. They got you right where they want you. So now every month you're going to get this newsletter. You're going to get this JW contributor newsletter. I don't have one. I don't know what it says, but I can only guess. It probably says, well, thank you very much, Brother Smith, for your kind donation to the Watchtower. Jehovah will bless you. And you know that this world is coming to an end very rapidly. And our donation will help bring so many more witnesses into the organization. And they're going to continue to have you give them more donations. It's just like, but I think sometimes the churches of Christendom, if you would, do the same thing. You give a donation and boy, I'll tell you, they're going to be right on you. They know this works. And the Jehovah's Witnesses know it too. But you're going to have your own personal JW contributor newsletter. And you're going to be reminded every month, okay, you gave us money last month. Can you do it again? I don't know if this is a new thing, but remember years ago when you would go to the convention and the brother would get up there and say, brothers and sisters, if you want to make a contribution to the Watchtower, and you make a contribution of $250 or more, we will give you a letter so you can show the Internal Revenue Service. Well, once they have you, even in the old days when you would even write to them and ask for that tax deduction form, you would, I'm sure you would have been receiving letters. I really do. Once they got you,
Hey, Rick.
yes.
I just want to make a quick comment about that. I've said this before, but when I was married before and I was still going to meetings, I was at an assembly during the summertime, so the summer convention. And, the brother typically came out, I believe, gave the financial report. I think it was before lunch, if I'm not mistaken, and how, what the expenses were and how they were still short. And something triggered something that I thought to myself, all the years that I had gone to these conventions, it was always the same spill. I have never one time ever heard them come out and say, this is our expenses for the weekend, but thanks to the blessing of Jehovah, we're ahead. We got X amount and we'll donate this to, maybe the worldwide preaching work or whatever. I've never heard that. It's always deficit. So after the assembly, when I was still married at the time to a witness wife, and I said that to her, and she goes, "You know what? I've never thought about that. You're right. It's always been a deficit. How come we're always in a deficit?" So she said that to her parents, which started a whole interesting conversation, but it really never went anywhere other than that. But I guess that's when I was really starting to wake up and realize what is wrong with this picture. Because if you think you got 10,000 people or 12,000, I can't remember how many, we were in the Tacoma Dome before they stopped going there because of that, that whole thing that blew up. But, we were always in a deficit. And every year that I went to conventions, deficit. So I just wanted to bring that out. And I just thought it was crazy.
Well, no, that is a planned arrangement. That is what they do. We had a woman come on the 6 screens a good 10 years ago, and her name was Lorene Stanley. And her husband was a big wig at the conventions, one of the administrators or chairman or whatever his title was, I'm not sure. But she was one of the counters. She counted the money that was brought in, the cash money that people put in those boxes all around the convention site. And so she would be in this room counting money. And all the people that sat next to these boxes, they would walk in with them full of cash and dump it out on the floor. And then they had like these baskets, he was saying, like they put apples in like wooden baskets. And she was one of the counters of the money. They had a number of sisters who would count the money coming in. And she was just counting up money like it was going out of style, cash, $5, $20, $50, dollars, 10s, 20s. It was unbelievable. And so anyways, what the brother did is they counted all the money up, and she went and they said, okay, we brought in $50,000. And then they'd say, well, Lorraine, don't count that other box yet. You leave that one over there. And the reason why they did that is so they could come up. They didn't want to count it all because they wanted to say they had a deficit. And they did this all the time. But this is back in the 80s. And she said, Rick, how much money do you think the witnesses brought in at these conventions? And, I didn't know. I took a shot at it. I mean, if they had these conventions today, they'd make a lot more. But back in the 80s, when people were probably making, $25,000 a year, $20,000 a year, I figured, well, maybe they put $20 in, $10 in. It wasn't a lot. So I said, well, Lorraine, how about $20? How about 20,000? Is that what they brought in back at those conventions? More, she says. How about 30? She says it was $50,000. And then they wouldn't count it all. They wouldn't count it all. They'd say to the sister, put the money put that other basket over there. Don't count that one yet. And then they would go up and announce at the end of the convention, hey, we have a deficit. How fraudulent, how deceitful that is.
And Rick,
yes,
I was in the 2000s when I can't remember when I stopped going exactly completely, but it was in late 2000s. So, and you think about that was one weekend. They were all summer long. How many across the United States? How many assemblies there are every single weekend during the summertime? That's some serious cash coming in and always reporting as a deficit. I mean, I would hate to be the brother that knows there's another basket full of cash if he did, or several baskets full of cash, and going up there and have to tell people, oh, hey, thank you so much, but hey, we're still short. So, reach deep into your pockets and give some more. And you think of just going off of my family, unfortunately, so it's going back to when I was a young teenager. I was in Watsonville, California congregation. I think it was called Rolling Hills Congregation. And we went to San Francisco Cow Palace for the summer convention. So I believe, I want to say it was a 4-day convention. It might have been a 3, but I think it might have been a 4. But either way, my parents drove that. It was 3 to 4 hours one way. Drove that, could not afford to stay in a hotel. And then you got the Watchtower or people up there saying, hey, we didn't get enough money to keep this, pay for the expenses. So guess what my parents are going to do? They're using their own gas money. They can't afford to stay in a hotel, so they're going to have to drive back and forth each day and then dig into their pockets to give more money because they're lying about how much they have. How disgusting is that?
That's called the bitch, baby. That goes back to Amy Simple McPherson and Catherine Kuhlman in California. And if you want to see a pretty evangelist, those ladies had it, and they had buckets of money, and it's called the pitch.
Well, there you go, Pixie. I mean, you've been around long enough. You've been to many conventions, I'm sure. The truth is never told. They'd taken boatloads of cash, and this woman years ago, like I said, she'd come on and she'd spill the beans and tell us all of this stuff. They're deceitful, very deceitful organization. You're on with us. Go ahead. Yeah, we were talking about conventions and always that deficit. You're on with us. Go ahead. Okay. Well, you're not going to speak up. That's okay, too. All right. You want to say? Go ahead.
I'm listening star 6 over and over again. Okay.
Go ahead.
Zachary again.
Yeah.
This is a circuit assembly thing that I saw happen once. It's not as big as what you guys are talking about, but it is a money thing. I don't know if you remember when they first went to complete donation basis. That's where you would just go up and get the food and you put money in the contribution box. Remember when that first started?
Well, I'm trying to, let's see now. Oh, yeah, I do. Yes, I do. Yep. I got you. Yep.
Early 90s. So they went from the practice of, you buy food tickets and then you use the food tickets to buy your food. So they changed that. So the first circuit assembly after that, I used to work in the accounting department. And the first assembly after they went to complete donation basis, we're in the back room, putting together accounts report or something. And the assembly overseer came and he said, this morning, I had a sister out there giving change. So what they had done was, because people had to put money in the contribution box now, they weren't given change back Like when you would buy tickets or buy food, you'd buy the number of tickets you want and then you'd get change. But now that wasn't the way it was working. Now you put money in the contribution box. So there were people who must have needed change. And so someone assigned a sister to sit at a table and to give out change. You know, you come with the 20 and she'd give you $20 in change, in smaller bills. And so he took her off. The assembly overseer took her off. He stopped her from being able to give change. And the idea was that it would cause the friends to have to put bigger bills in the contribution box.
Well, that's a little bit nasty, isn't it, Zach?
Yeah, I think so. Oh yeah. Yeah, you get people change so they can put what they want to put in the contribution box, but what comes from their heart.
Well, you know, I used to find that myself. I'd go to the convention and, you know, the brother would get up there. Did you brothers really enjoy this beautiful presentation from Jehovah God? If you really did, why don't you help us a little bit and help out with the finances? So, you know, I'd be walking out of there with 5 kids and I'd look in my wallet and, you know, maybe I'd give them $10. I gave him $10 the day before, $10 the day before. So I said, geez, okay, I'll give him $10. I don't have a lot of money. I'm just scrounging by like everybody else, but I didn't have a $10 bill on some occasions. I only had a 20. But, you know, I'm thinking, oh, my conscience here, you know, well, I'll give the 20 to Jehovah. I did that many a times, many.
Yeah. You know, let me say this too, because I just now mentioned that I did work in the accounts area. And so now I opened that up. So I guess I need to comment on that. I helped put together the accounts reports, and we did not fudge numbers. And there was often a deficit because what they do is they show the expenses for the entire assembly, and usually the accounts report was made out by the noon meal of Sunday. It was prepared so that the amount of money that had come in was less than it would be by the end of the assembly. So that brother would always say, would often, not always, but often say, so right now we're showing a deficit. And I think in order for it to be more correct, there should have been a projection on how much they expected to be contributed the rest of the afternoon. But because of the time that it was done, that's one of the things, that's one small component that contributed to always having a deficit.
Hey, Zach, they used to announce that we were in debt $12,000 before the assembly even started.
Yeah.
Before the assembly even started. And then at the end of the assembly, if they had extra over the $12,000, they always gave it to the World Wide Web. I was like, how convenient, the worldwide work. Yeah. Like whatever. And I'm like, well, if they had extra, why don't they just save it for our next assembly? They never did. They always gave the extra to the worldwide work. But they would announce right at the beginning of the assembly, before it even started, they said we're at $12,000 in the red. And I'm like, how is that possible? And apparently they had they would estimate like $10 per person, and that's how they came up with the 12,000 or whatever.
And one of the things I remember when they tried, I was getting more involved in the account, but there are, if you're asking me a question, there are the apartment expenses that happen from one assembly to the next assembly. So some of those go into the expenses, the circuit overseer apartments, if they're using rented apartments. And like you said, there's always that assessment, per publisher assessment. They do some calculation and divide it by the number of publishers. They do something with the expenses divided by the number of publishers in the circuit, and that's how they come up with that per publisher assessment. So, from what I remember.
And the elders
Okay.
actually make the resolution to send the money to the organization before the assembly.
You know, often they have that business meeting where they say the elders are going to have a business meeting, and in our circuit, they would ask if they could. They would ask the elders if they could send so much to the society. Now, some of the money that went to the society was still belonging to our circuit. And the assembly overseer always said, when we were short, he always said, I don't want to ask the society for any of our money back. So it's kind of on deposit with the society. It's on deposit and is there, and you can request it if you want to request it. But sometimes the brothers just decided, you know, it might be the assembly overseer who would make that decision, who would be strong with that idea that we don't want to ask for any of our money back. So it kind of just sits there indefinitely.
Does anybody remember the time that they got in trouble with this city because the city had given them the facilities? And with the facilities was the parking lot. And there was not supposed to be any charge for it, but yet they sold the parking lot tickets, you know, through the Kingdom Halls, and they made the money that way, and it wasn't really supposed to happen. Does anybody remember that?
That happened at the Tacoma Dome, I know, and that's where we were going from. We lived in the Battleground, Washington area, close to Vancouver, Washington, and our summer assemblies were in the Tacoma Dome, which is about 2.5 hour drive, so maybe 3. And all of a sudden it changed. They made the announcement that we would be going to Portland, Oregon, which everybody was happy because that was only, for most of us, that was only like a 20-minute drive. But they did not go into really any details why the switch, but other than it was a really close drive for us. So obviously they're not going to go into those details and let us know that they were charging us when they shouldn't have been.
Hello, Rick.
Yes. Hello, Constance.
Hi, dear. You know, I find this story so fascinating, Rick. You know, I've always wondered what Watchtower has done with all this money, you know, and how much they collected. You know, Rick, I wanted to ask you, when that gal that you mentioned, Lorraine Stanley, I wish I had heard that broadcast, you know, years ago. But I wanted to ask you, Rick, was the 50,000, was that for the, you know, the 2-day circuit assembly, or was that like for the 4-day district or regional?
Well, it would have been for, I believe at the time, a 3-day convention. So she said it was $50,000. But, you know, $50,000 back in the early 80s, late 70s, when she was counting money, that was a lot of money. People didn't make the salaries that they make today. So, you know, $50,000, that was a lot of money. So, yeah, she came on. She was an older lady, and I don't even think she's living now, but she landed up in a nursing home, and she would call up the 6 screens, and she'd give us all these stories. And as a matter of fact, I'm trying to put together some of these really great calls that we had over the course of 16 years. And that was one of them. People really were rocked by that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure, Rick, because, you know, the average person has no clue. I mean, like, you know, Daniel was saying, you know, from Watsonville all the way to the Cow Palace, you know, in San Francisco, it's right on the border of San Francisco and Daly City. You know, those were 4-day conventions. And I was going to say, in the San Francisco Bay Area, you know, we'd have our, you know, back in the day, they were called district conventions when I was in. And, you know, we had them at Candlestick, then we had them over at the Oakland Coliseum, and then we had them at the San Francisco Cow Palace. And, you know, you're talking about a population, you know, between 20 and 25,000 people for the conventions. So if you had a 4-day convention, you know, over 4 days, you had approximately 100,000 people coming through. So You know, Rick, I find that very interesting, and I'm just sort of curious. Did this lady, did she say what state it was where they got the 50,000? I mean, was it a cosmopolitan place like the San Francisco Bay Area or New York?
I do believe it was California. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm gonna dig that tape up and see if I can find it.
Yeah.
And put it up on the 6 screens up on SoundCloud. Yeah, that's interesting. But I wanted to ask you too, Constance. And now, when we end our program here in a while, we're going to be bringing Dan and Angela. They're going to be going on YouTube. So we're on YouTube right now. So what it does is it makes it. When I end my newscast, it takes me a little while to set up the other YouTube. So could I get you to come in right after my news and just talk to the audience and tell them about the program coming up and with Lisa and some of the things you know about satanic ritual abuse?
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay, and I'm just on my phone, so it's just audio, so we're okay with that.
You're all right. You just come in as you are right now. So at the end of my newscast, I have to, log out of YouTube with this program and then log in with another program. It takes me about 5 or 10 minutes. So if you could just come on and you can kind of talk in the meantime and let people know the program's coming up tonight and Lisa and all of the information you know about this abuse that's going on. I think that'd be good if you could do that, okay?
Of course, Rick, of course.
All right.
Absolutely. I'll be happy to help you out.
All right, well, thank you. Okay, well, thank you, Constance. Thank you very much. That's why I called you early and I missed you, but I that's what I was going to ask you to do for me. So that'd be great if you could help me. Yeah, thank you. All right.
Sure, Rick. I was on the freeway when you called, so.
Oh, yeah, no,
worries.
I understand.
Thank you.
No problem. I know you come on and I talk to you now, so that's good. Thank you. All right, we have got, hey, you're on the JW World News. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but Jehovah's Witnesses and COVID test kits. Oh, my goodness. Here the witnesses go again. They are now encouraging you. There was a letter sent out to the congregation, to the elders, and they are now encouraging you as a Jehovah's Witness to get the kit. And I found that kind of fascinating. This is basically what the branch wants you to do. The branch office does not, first of all, let me read this. It's like a disclaimer. They say the branch office, Jehovah's Witnesses, does not endorse any of the following programs. So they make that kind of right up front. They tell you that they're not endorsing this, but they are suggesting it. Now listen closely. It says, do not post this document publicly on any website, social media, or sharing service. The links will take you to various available resources, including nonprofit and government agencies. Family heads will need to use discernment and carefully research these resources to determine whether the program is appropriate for their households and decide if they will avail themselves of such programs. Now, let me just give you an idea what's going on here. So the branch is sending a letter out to the congregations, and we know that the Biden administration is sending these test kits. They've got millions of them ordered, and they're going to be free. People can get the COVID-19 test kit if they want it. So the Watchtower is encouraging the witnesses, even though they're not endorsing any particular place that you're going to get the test kit from, but they are endorsing the fact that you get one of these government test kits, and they have a number of places you can get it from. So they're encouraging you to do it, and they're saying that the households, they will have to decide whether they want to do it or not, but they're encouraging it. Very much like, remember a couple of years ago in the summer when they're giving out the food baskets? The government's giving us food baskets, but they didn't say that. And the way this is even worded, it's almost like Jehovah is allowing such an opportunity for us to get a free COVID test. So it's that same thing. Well, why is the Watchtower meddling in governmental affairs? They never did that. When I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, they remained neutral. This is a complete turnaround for the Watchtower geez, they're poking their nose in all kinds of people's business. Even when it comes to get your vaccine, make sure you're vaccinated. All the Bethelites are vaccinated. And now they're telling you to, even though it's a personal choice, but they're at least suggesting to you, get the COVID-19 kit. And the United States government is providing free at-home COVID-19 test kits for anyone residing in the United States and its territories. Up to 4 test kits per residential address can be requested. Shipping of the test kits will be typical within 7 to 12 days. And the orders are going to be on January 19th, or just a couple of days ago. But you got to provide your name and residential mailing address. And then they will send you, the government will send you a test kit. But you know how I'm reading this, how I'm looking at this, friends. I don't want you to think that I have to pick on the Watchtower everything they do. But I'm seeing something that doesn't pass the smell test here. I'm seeing something that's a little bit awkward. Many witnesses are going to construe this is a gift from Jehovah. This is a gift from Jehovah. We are getting these tests, and we're going to be able to use them. And Jehovah is testing. He's helping us to test ourselves. They are so paranoid of this COVID-19, the Omicron virus now. They're so paranoid. But this is just another way the Watchtower can come out smelling like a rose. The Watchtower can make it look like, whoa, we're behind this. But it's the government that's doing it. I'm not just my own thoughts. You might have different thoughts on that. But anyways, we have got some great programming coming up tonight. We don't want you to leave us. We do not want you to leave us. And I don't think you'd want to leave. Now, you're going to be hearing some things very shortly on Dan and Angela's program, Heart to Heart. It's going to shock you. It's going to really shock you. We have a woman coming on. Her name is Lisa. She has been involved in satanic ritual abuse in the Watchtower. Yes, in the Watchtower. She claims, I want you to listen. I want to listen closely too. But she claims that she was ritually abused, satanic ritually abused by the Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, not the rank and file. She's talking about the upper echelons of the Watchtower and how they're involved in human trafficking and how they are doing very, very perverted sexual acts on people in their own hotels. She's going to talk about it. She's going to name names. She's coming on Dan and Angela's show in just about 15 minutes. You don't want to miss this program. Now, look it. I'm not trying to convince you. I want to hear her story. Some of this stuff seems very bizarre, but please don't lambaste this woman. This woman has been through the grinder. So please don't, make it sound like she's not with it. However you're going to characterize her, please don't do that. Let her tell her story. And if you have problem with her story, she's willing to come on and talk to you in real time. So, stay with us. And if you're on YouTube, when we shut this off tonight, we're going to go right. We're going to have this on YouTube too, but it's not going to be on JW World News. So if you're on YouTube and you want to listen to it, get right back in, same channel, and it'll be live on YouTube. You'll be able to hear her. But if some reason YouTube isn't working and you can't get through, in the description box, go to 6screensofthewatchtower.com. Scroll down. It'll show you how to listen on the telephone line or how to get in on our video suite. So why don't you give that a shot? And I think I know this is going to be we got a lot of people already calling in. I've been getting emails of people. They want to hear the program. So why don't we just, now, in the past, we've had numerous people come on and speak about sexual abuse, ritual abuse, satanic ritual abuse. And, there's always people that want to take shots at the person saying these things, but please listen, be tolerant, and just try to extract something that can make sense to you. So we'll go.
Hello?
Yes.
Hey, Rick.
Yes, Daniel.
I think somebody else spoke.
Well, I know it's Mike on there, and I know he's one of these.
Just a quick comment, Rick. No, I'm just going to ask you a question. If this is true, what this woman's going to say, are you worried that it's true and the Watchtower is listening? If this is true that they're involved in sex trafficking, maybe they're going to come and bump you off or something.
Well, no, this could be. I mean, I'm serious. Even bringing this program on, I mean, I'm not worried about me, but now.
I know you're not worried.
Well, I'm not worried about me. I'm worried.
You know what I was thinking, Rick, is if you look at it, for one thing, even including myself, this is really the topic coming up. Is it's a deep, it's a big subject, to say the least. But if you want to put that to a side just for a second and look at what the Watchtower has done that you know of, look at what they've done to their members spiritually. Damaging a person's psyche, damaging them to the point that when they leave, how many people become atheists? How many, and I'm not dogging on anybody that's atheist or agnostic or whatnot, but I'm saying if you look at the damage the Watchtower has done with child abuse, spiritual rape, you look at all the damage that has been done that people are trying to heal and recuperate and get themselves back together. If that's not demonic, what is? You know what I'm saying? The Watchtower damages people at every level, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I mean, which affects them physically. So if that's not demonic, what is?
Well, absolutely. That is demonic, and that's exactly the point that I try to think about when we have people like this come on. It's not that totally outlandish. There's things that go on in the Jehovah's Witness religion that are known to the news media. They know all of the perversion, sexual pedophilia that's going on. Why is all of this? And look at even the news media today. Look at all the coverage they have about pedophiles and about people who are abusing other people, adults. Look at Como. Look at Epstein, his girlfriend, Christine Maxwell. All of these, this is all news. So when a woman comes on, and I even been checking some FBI records, and I've been working all week finding information about satanic ritual abuse. It's real. It's real. People just don't want to report about it. And we'll see what the woman has to say tonight. And then after that program, we have another program comes on after the storm, but at midnight tonight or somewhere around midnight, we'll be back on again. Anne-Marie, Constance, and myself will do a special program all about the darkest order, the deepest, darkest secret order of the Jehovah's Witnesses, midnight tonight. So you don't want to miss that either. All right, so we're getting down here to the end. I think I'm going to kind of end a little early so I can switch off here my YouTube from JW.
I just wanted to say one thing.
Yes, go ahead,
that
Pixie.
I believe woman that will be on, and I believe that it can be that extreme, but all the witness children, even if they were just spare the rod, spoil the child, beaten for every Sunday for 10 years, it affects the immune system for life. It affects the digestive system for life. It affects the damaged nervous system for life. Even just that part.
Well, there you go. And I'm with you. No, a person can be really, really critically injured, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you name it. It can do a job on a person. She's willing to come on. Her name is Lisa. She'll be on here in just a few minutes. But before we do that, I had some other stories too, but we'll pick up on those next week. But I just wanted to mention a few things here. I wanted to, let me just get in here for a second and see what happened here. I lost some of the stuff I was dealing with, but we'll get right back to it. And I just want to say there's no Sunday programs tomorrow. It'll be next Sunday, every other Sunday here on the 6 screens. We have a 6-screen Sunday, so it won't be tomorrow. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. And I wanted to give a shout out to all of these people that are working so hard, putting out YouTube videos, Mike and Kim, and even tonight, Carrie Ann, we did her video with the newspaper, with the reporter talking about writing obituaries, columns. The Jehovah's Witnesses are doing that now, and that was her YouTube. We give a shout out to her. We give a shout out to Lloyd Evans, to everybody, Critical Thinker, JW Escape, all the people that are working to expose the Watchtower. Now, if you like the program tonight and you're on YouTube, you want this program to be heard by more Jehovah's Witnesses and ex-witnesses. Well, why don't you reach down there and subscribe? Because what it does, the more people that subscribe, the more algorithms, the more this will get out and people can listen in and share it on Facebook. And why don't you like it too? Do that. That's all I ask you to do. And we'll be able to keep this program going and get more people to call in and talk with us. All right, we have time for one more call.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Hey, I just wanted to give kudos to you too. I just wanted to say that I really appreciate that you bring JW World News into the show, because that's something that I personally have, since I first came onto the show, really appreciated and valued and couldn't wait to hear. And doing that is, obviously, you have to do your research. You got to take time out to find this stuff. And the fact that you take that time and to share it with us, I just wanted to just say I appreciate you for that, because that is a huge thing to be able to get on and really be updated on what's going on out there. And there's a lot of people that want to know, what is going on with the Watchtower when they may not have the time or haven't found a certain subject matter, and you bring that into world news. And so I really appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Daniel. No, I enjoy doing it. Been doing it for 16 years. But yeah, no, it takes work. It takes a lot of work all during the week. I was up this morning at 6 o'clock this morning and going through some of this stuff, because you have to come on. You can't come on and go blah, 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 blah. You got to spit some stuff out. So it's good. But what really helps me too is the callers when they call in. And we don't have any commercial breaks or anything on regular TV. The commentators and the newscasters, they get a chance. They can get up, walk around, go to the bathroom, get a cold drink. But here it's when you get on, you pedals to the metal. You're going all the time. And I'll tell you what, it's not easy, but I enjoy it. And I enjoy all of you guys that call in too. That's what makes the program. Well, look at what we're going to do now is stay with us. We will be going to our program Heart to Heart that's coming up next. There'll be about a 5 or 10 minute delay. I have to get off of this YouTube and I got to set up a new YouTube for Heart to Heart. But if you're on YouTube now, just don't worry about it. Check back in about 5 or 10 minutes and we'll be back on with the Heart to Heart program. And so anyways, we have got Constance coming in from Northern California. And she, well, I'll tell you what, she's quite the woman. She's an ex-Jehovah's Witness. You hear her calling in here all the time on our program. So she'd like to talk to you for just a few minutes about some of the programming coming up tonight and satanic ritual abuse. Give you a little idea. She's into this. She's somewhat of an expert on it. She studies it, and I trust her thoughts on it. So, Constance, you there with us? Hello, Constance. Hit *6, Constance.
Rick, I'm here, dear. I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I'm here.
All right. Here you are. So we're all set. We got you now. So I'm going to have you just handle this for about 5 minutes. Just say whatever you want to about the programs coming up. And I'm trying to get Dan and Angela hooked up here on YouTube. So I want to thank everyone for coming in. Want to thank everyone for coming into our newscast tonight. I want you guys all to stand tall. Don't you ever give in, up or out. And the last one leaving the Watchtower, please turn off the new light. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Okay, Constance, the floor is yours.
Okay, good. Thank you. Hi, everybody. This is Constance. I'm from North